All right, welcome back, everybody, to another special supersized edition of Chasing Ghosts. Now, I had planned to do this video for Saturday, but then Mike Morello and Ben C came back and we decided to do another CBSI Star Wars comic show. So I got so excited that we had that done and in the can that I had to drop that on Saturday. So I had actually planned to move this Chasing Ghosts video for my normal Tuesday, but then Phil Lee actually gave me another idea that I kind of like to do for Tuesday. So then I was like, what am I going to do with this? So I decided, you know what? I'm still going to do this as a special supersized edition, but we're going to do it on Sunday instead of Saturday. So today is going to be a supersized Sunday edition of Chasing Ghosts. That kind of ties in with the current movie that's tearing up the screens right now. So hopefully you're liking this as well as all the other content here on the channel. If you are, please like, subscribe, hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling friends so we can keep growing the channel. And just hang on for a few seconds after the intro, and I'll be right back with this week's special topic. Okay, so for this week, I feel like with Venom 2 out on the big screens and doing pretty well for itself, it surpassed my expectations so far, judging off of the current estimates of what it's doing as I'm filming this Saturday night. I am still eagerly, anticipating going to see it, but I don't know when I'm going to be able to. But I am looking forward to it. I know things have been already spoiled for me, so I know the big reveals at the end, but I'm not going to spoil any of that here. That's not the point of what we're doing here. The point of what we're doing here is to talk about those ghosts, those hard to find, those impossible to find comics that you just don't normally see on the regular at your LCS. And with that in mind, I thought it was a good idea to focus in on our favorite topic right now, I guess, with Venom, and look at those Marvel Venomized incentive variants from 2012, I believe they were. These were all 1 in 50s for that month. I believe it was March of 2012. So we got a handful of books to talk about, close to 2 dozen, and yeah, we're just gonna get right into it. So with our first book for this special supersized Sunday edition of Chasing Ghosts, we're going to talk about a book a lot of people like, This Amazing Spider-Man 678. This homage to that classic moment when, Mary Jane shows up and, face the tiger. You just won the jackpot. But in this case, she's venomized, so you just lost the jackpot. I just don't love this one. I get it. I appreciate it. I appreciate the cover. I appreciate the homage. It's just something about this one. It just doesn't do it for me. And it's nothing to do. I do like Joe Quinones, if I'm saying his name correctly. I do like the cover. It's not so much the art. I think it's just, I don't know, just kind of hits me with a meh a little bit. That's all. But I'm only going to give you the incentive numbers on these. I'm not going to give you a full print run. These are all 1 in 50, so you can do the math if you want to, reverse engineer the full print run. But the incentive on this, there would be roughly, a little over 1,000 copies, close to 1,100 copies for this ASM 678 with this Mary Jane, Venomized cover. Decent amount of copies here in the census. I mean, 198 total is more than we usually see because, again, this is a very popular book. So if a fifth of the run is of the fifth of the available copies potentially are all slabbed, I think that is worth noting. And it's also worth noting that out of that 198, only 41 are 9/8. Like in a lot of cases, books like this, they get a very high 9/8 numbers, but in this case, 9/6 is the big dog with 81 and only 41 9/8, and then 9/4s even have more at 47, and then there's 14 9. There's a smattering of other books. I mean, 200 copies in the CGC census is a decent amount, especially for our purposes here talking about ghosts. So if there's this many copies in the census, that's more than some of the print runs of books that we've talked about on this program. But that being said, if you wanted to go out shop and look for this, you have some copies to choose from. This isn't that hard to find, so I think you can kind of guess I'm not going to give this one the ghost qualification at the end, but we're still going to go through it. We're still going to talk about it. I mean, that top one there, 15 grand for a CGC, but it's got multiple signatures, and I believe Stanley's is one of them. So that's kind of an outlier. Can't really go off of that, but you can still look at some of these others slabs that are some signed, some not, but 6,800, 5,000, 5,000, like 5,000 for a raw. Those are some hefty amounts, and there's more. I got a whole nother crop of them from 3,500, 2,800, $2,300 raw, 2,250 raw, CGC 9.8 for $2,000. Like, prices are kind of all over the place, and then it looks like that's a PGX 9.8 for $1,000. Definitely interesting, and might have to consider it because it's so much cheaper than even the raws that are out there to just grab that, PGX. But it does have signatures on it, so it would depend if you are a signature person or not, if you wanted to invest that kind of money, because even that one's still over $1,000. Now, like I said, that's close to a dozen copies available right now on the market if you wanted to buy them. And then if we want to look at what actually sold, there's not as many. Only one moved over the last 3 months, and that was back in July for just about $1,800, which is a solid amount to be sure for this 1 in 50. Like I said, this is a very popular book, so a lot of the price on this goes to that. And ASM collectors are one of the more dedicated collectors out there, where they want everything if they can get it. So just got to keep that in mind as well. So even though the estimated print run of these might be in the 1,100 range, there's definitely more than 1,100 Spider-Man fans that want to have everything if they can afford it. So you got to keep that in mind too. But let's just move on to the next one, because we don't want to spend too much time on any one book. And our next Venomized cover is Avengers number 21. This is a pretty cool cover. I kind of like this. You got Spider-Woman, Cap, Iron Man in there, and we will see some of these other characters Venomized on their own covers a little bit later. But it's nice to see the group of Earth's venomous heroes. As you can see, that they even played with the title card on this. This was a cover by Carlo Barberi, and roughly about close to the same as the ASM on this one, the incentive. Close to 1,100 on these, like just under. But out of those 1,100, this one doesn't have quite so many in the CGC census as the ASM 678. This one, we only got 66 total in the census. 30, so a little less than half, 9/8s, 23 9/6s, and then a few others to round out that total of 66. Again, that's more in line with a lot of the books that we usually look at here on Chasing Ghosts, but still decent amount of copies potentially out there. And if we want to look at what's actually out there for you to buy, there's also a few that you can put your money towards if this is what you were looking for. I mean, $3,000 is kind of tough, but 3 signatures on a CGC SS. And again, I think it's another Stanley in there, because Stan signed a lot of books. I realize a lot of his signatures have gone up with his passing, but he has signed a lot of books. So just keep that in mind as well. Again, I'm not a signature guy, so I don't pay too much attention to signature prices, but it is what it is. So if you want to pay that premium, that's your choice. But as you can see elsewhere, you can paying $432 for a 9.6 or $440 for a 9.8. So there are options for you, as well as here are some raws that you can also grab from 300, 400, 320, 250. Still a couple $100 for this book raw. Definitely not a cheap book, as you might expect. It's a 1 in 50 from 2012. And this was a popular run of variants. I know a lot of people have talked about it before. My buddy Van Denby, who I know I've mentioned many times on this Chasing Ghosts, but I do get a lot of ideas and inspirations from articles and runs that he has done where he's talked about some of these variants over the years. So I'm definitely going to run over some ground that he has already tread in doing these videos, whether it be Forgotten Variants or Chasing Ghosts, because, I mean, this is the time frame that I like to look at. I mean, it's not too much fun for us to talk about, this past Wednesday's variants. We can't say if it's Ghost or not because it just came out. So we want to look at some of these books that are a decade old that we just don't see that often. But that being said, when we look at what sold for this one, again, we got one copy. And that was actually a 9.6 that accepted a best offer on $200. So under $200 for this with free shipping was definitely a nice, a nice little buy. I don't want to say it's a bargain, but when you compare it to the asking prices, with many of I think the lowest raw ask was $250. Getting a 9.6 for under $200 ain't bad when you put that into that kind of a perspective. But definitely a cool book. And as I said, we got a Venomized cap here. So let's move on to a Venomized Captain America. And this is Captain America 7. Pretty cool cover by Mike Perkins. Mike Perkins did this one. And, it's kind of cool. Cap is Venomized. It's as you expect. I like when they use the logos and they kind of mash them up together. It's kind of fun to see like the Venomized logo with the star kind of blended together. It's definitely a fun little look. And this one is a little bit on the it's under 1,000, so it's a little less than the last two that we looked at. 939, estimated copies of this incentive for this 1 in 50. Once again, all 1 in 50s, so high incentive ratios on all of these books is going to make kind of tough for a lot of these to be found. Just to be honest. And this one actually has more graded copies than the Avengers. It's got 72 in the census with 32 9/8s, 23 9/6s, 12 9/4s, and then a few others to fill out that 72. But that's kind of interesting that there's more of this book than the Avengers, even though there's more potential copies of the Avengers books than the Cap book. I don't know. I guess more people liked this cover and felt the need to go and get it graded than they did with the Avengers. To each his own. But if you're looking for a copy of this Cap, you're going to be looking to spend, again, CGCSS. Looks like there's a Stan Lee on there as well, because get Stan to sign everything. $3,000 for the SS. But if you just want the book, not worrying about the signatures, not worrying about Stan's signature, looks like $800 for a 9/8 or $450 for a 9/6 are your options there. And we got another page, so there are still more options. For 9/6s, we're talking $370, $400, or you can go look at these raws that are about $300 to $350. Still very pricey for all these books, but there are copies to be had if you are out there shopping. And if you want to look at actually sold for this one, we actually don't have any sold copies the last 3 months, which is kind of interesting. But whether they sold or not, there's still a decent amount of copies for which you can choose from if you were looking for this one out there. If you want to make this run, this variant set, this would be a very pricey set for you to put together. But so far, in our first 3 books, you could do it if you have the cash. It's just expensive. And expensive or finding it are two completely separate things. Some books are hard to find or impossible to find. And some books are impossible to find and expensive. And some books, you can find them. They're just expensive. So they're just hard to find for cheap. 2 different qualifications. But moving on, we're going to look at Defenders number 2. Definitely a cool cover here. And I like the Red She-Hulk and Iron Fist in Doctor Strange there. Definitely a cool cover by Chris Stevens. And this one's on the lower end as well. There's only 778. I want to estimate because Defenders, obviously doesn't have the readership numbers that Avengers does. So when you do that 1 in 50 incentive, it's going to have less copies available. And with that being said, you could also see that there are less in the census, but not too many less. You still got 52 copies total in the census, 41 of which are 9/8. So that is an impressive 9/8 number to total ratio. That means 4 out of every 5 copies is getting that 9/8 when this one's getting submitted, and only 8 9/6s and a couple of others. So this is like 9/8 or bust on this book as far as submissions have gone so far in the census. And if you're looking for this book, you're out there shopping. Are there copies? There are. Once again, top dog there on the price, $4,000 for a CGC SS. That, of course, Stan Lee. Signs everything. And then you can look. There's there's raw copy there for $250, and then there's a 9/6 for only $140, which ain't too bad. Another couple of raws down at the bottom there that just under $100. So definitely a little bit more affordable than the others, but still cheapest copies. Raw double ratio is not that cheap. You can consider it, but it's still $100 is $100. And if we want to look at what actually sold for this one, we only got one, and it was a 9/8 that got a best offer on 160. So that in itself is looking like a bargain to get a 1 in 50 incentive from about a decade ago for under $160. You got to imagine it's probably in that 140 range or so, but still not too bad when you think about it. If you look at those other raws and you were to buy one of those raws for $100, you'd have to submit it. That's probably about the price, but that's making sure that those copies you're buying raw are 9/8s, which is not always the case. So, going to move it on. Fantastic Four 602. So, obviously, we're going to Venomized the Fantastic Four. Nice stretchy Reed Richards. And this is when the Fantastic Four was wearing those the white and black outfits, like in that FF those FF days, which we have that book coming next because they were the two Fantastic Four titles running at that time. So the black and white is kind of fun. It blends with Venom, but it's also more of like an anti-Venom look, and it's definitely an interesting take. And then even a Flame On Johnny Storm there in the background. This cover was done by Kalman. This is gonna be a tough one for me to say. Adarowski. I know I said that wrong. There's more syllables that I missed, but we're leaving it there. You can read it if you want to know who did this cover instead of laughing at me trying to pronounce it. But the incentive on this one would give it a rough estimate of about 902, based on the estimated print run. So again, on the lower side than some of the bigger titles with Avengers and ASM. But we look in the census, still 55 copies total in the census, but only 21 9/8, 16 9/6s, 11 9/4s, and then a few others. So definitely a more of a balanced return on those grades than say the Defenders, which was 4 out of every 5 was getting that 9/8. But again, if you're out there shopping, are there copies? Yes, we still have those. Stan Lee SS CGC Signature Series, couple of 9/4s at the top. It looks like 2,500 and 1,500, and then we got a 9/8 for about 440, and it looks like another a 9/6 for about $300 on this first crop of options because we got a few more. We got another 9/6 for about $300, a 9/4 for about $220, and 8/5. If you really want to go down there, that's something we don't normally see, at least on what we've looked at so far. But an 8/5 for $190, or buy that raw for $170. Copies are there, just a little pricey, but they're there. And if you want to look at what actually sold, we don't have any. So, like the cap, nobody's been buying this book at those prices the last couple of months. So. Again, one could have argued that this set could have been done as part of my Forgotten Variants series, but I still felt like it was chasing ghosts because 1 in 50s are tough enough as it is. And I know so far there's 8 to 12 copies of every book so far, but we'll find some tougher ones in here. We'll find some tougher ones as we go through the rest of the list. I'm sure we will. All right, so moving on, we're going to talk about that FF title that I mentioned. So Fantastic Four. Here we have FF, and we got Dragon Man with the kids, rocking more of the normal Venomized look with the black suit, as opposed to the anti-Venom kind of style that Fantastic Four had. But this FF number 14 has covered by Michael Ryan, and about 852 copies. So it's pretty close to the Fantastic Four 602 that we just looked at as far as print run or estimated copies go. And if we look at that census, it's also pretty close with 46 total. Only 15 9/8s though, and 11 9/6s, and then everything else filling out that run of 46. And there's 6.0s and 6.5s in this grouping. So this book was graded pretty tough. I know the cover is pretty bright. It is definitely a brighter cover, but still some tough grading there. And are there copies? Yes, we got some options. 9/8, 550. Then we got some raws for $130, $170, and then there's an 8.5 for $125. So copies available, and wait, we still have more. We still have more copies. So some raws for about $120, $130, and then there's a $115 9.0 in there as well. So I know everybody's like 9.8 or bust when they're buying slabs, but I'm telling you, some of these books you should consider even those lower grades because it might just be the cheapest and easiest way to get a copy. I mean, if you really wanted this book, is it terrible to get a 9.0 for $115? It's still a 1 in 50. I don't know. I'm just saying. If you're going to pay $130 for a raw, what's the difference? And if we want to look at what actually sold, we also have none on this one. So nobody's buying these Fantastic Four Venom variants these days, or at least right now. But we'll see. We'll see how the market goes as time rolls on. But we're going to roll on to our next book, which is The Incredible Hulk number 4. This is a pretty cool cover. This Venomized Hulk, which this is probably one of the first times we saw a Venomized Hulk. And then we've seen a couple, I think, over the last few years. But this Mike Del Mundo cover is definitely pretty cool. That yellow kind of pops out at you. This is probably so far through this list one of my favorites that we've hit up so far. And I do like Del Mundo. I do have a soft spot for his art. I like a little bit of that craziness, the bright pops of color, the painterly kind of style. I dig it. But This copy or this book has about 917 estimated copies out there. So again, on the lower end of what we've had so far, but a solid 92 in the census. So twice as many of the last few books, with 37 9/8s, 32 9/6s, and a few others rounding that out. But 92 is on that higher end. Not quite the 200 or so of that ASM, but still definitely one of the more popular books to get submitted out of this Venomized group from 2012. And if you want to shop for this book, can you find a copy? Well, you can. It's out there if you want to pay for it. It's just pricey if you want to pay for it. We've got a couple of 9/8s, $850 to $1,200. A couple of 9/6s, it looks like in that $400 range. And that's it. So not a ton, but still, four ain't bad. You got some options if you're out there shopping. And you can see a few people watching, 12 and 15 watchers on some of these, just to see what's doing on this book. And if you want to look what actually sold, we do have 3. It looks like a Raw took a best offer on 1,200. Another Raw also best offer on 1,200, and somebody scored a 9.0 for best offer on 250. Judging by the prices of the other books, I'm telling you, that's a case where if you just want a copy, maybe you just buy that 9.0 for a price you can afford, because it might be better than spending $450 for a Raw. So I don't know, just saying. Sure, you may not be getting a 9.8, but chances are you buying that Raw off of eBay, that if coming to you as a 9.8, it's probably pretty slim too, unless you're a master presser and you can work some magic. I know some people can do that, but I don't like to play and gamble that way. I just want the book personally. Great 9/8s are great, but if I can get a book just to have it, I'll take it. When we're talking about stuff like this, some of this stuff they're pricey, they're hard to find, so I'll take what I can get. And what can we get next? Invincible Iron Man 512. Definitely a cool cover. You got that, really venomized look there with the mask and the tongue sticking out, popping in that window. And this is a Larry Strowman cover, which is kind of cool. I still think of him back in those X Factor days from the 90s, where his style has kind of evolved a little bit from there. But this incentive has only about 700 copies thereabouts. So this is definitely the lowest so far on our list. And when we look at what's in the census, it still has 80 in the census. So it's on the higher subbed, given that it's on the lower end of available. But tough to grade as well. Only 29/8s with 34 9/6s and 12 9/4s. So out of that 80 or thereabouts in the census, only one of 4 has gotten that 9/8. So definitely a tougher book to get in high grade, apparently, judging off of the census and what's out there. And what is out there, if you were shopping for one, we got copies. We got copies with, again, top dog's going to be that 3 sigged, one of which is Stanley 9/6 SS for $5,000. Definitely a steep price. And a 9/8 for $2,500. Looks like a 9/6 for $1,300. This one's pretty pricey. And we got a 9/6 SS. That's only about $1,000. I guess you can 9/4 for $850 or $840. Definitely not cheap. But those are the 5 copies that I was able to find. If you want to see what actually sells for this pricey book, well, 9/6 for $910. It's not bad. I mean, $1,000 for a 9/6 is a pretty solid return on any book, any incentive book, any book that's in the last 10 years. That's not bad. But let's move on to our next book, Journey into Mystery, number 633. I like this Journey into Mystery run. In young Loki, runs throughout this. Definitely a cool read, some fun stories. And this Stephanie Hans cover is pretty cool, especially when you got a couple of limbs, a couple of bodies that he's holding there. I mean, it's not just a limb. You can see the rest of the body under the water, but still, he has some deceased in his hands there with the venomized young Loki. But this one is coming in at a paltry 477 estimated copies. So this is definitely the lowest so far on our list as far as estimated print. And if we want to look at what's in the census, 36. We got 36 with 14 9/8s, 14 9/6s, and then a few others for that 36 total. Definitely not a lot. Definitely not a lot. So this is not an easy one to find. And can we find any? There's one. Only one out there. And it's a 9/8, which is pretty impressive. And it's about $2,000. So $2,000 for a 9/8 is a pricey book. But as you can see, there's not that many out there. So it is a tough one to find. And want to compare that $2,000 ass to what actually sold? Well, we got one sale, and it was a 9.4 for about $680. So at $2,000 is not too far off when you do that kind of math and how these books get kind of priced. I mean, you can go check out GPA and things like Go Collect, and you can see like the price differentials yourself. But for the most part, you're getting a higher premium for a 9.8, and then there's usually a steep dip to 9.6, and then 9.4, and then the rest kind of start to lump together as the prices go. But higher the price, obviously, there's going to be more plateaus. But that being said, definitely not an easy one to find. So this one is tough. And moving on to our next one, we got Mighty Thor. This nice Venomized Mighty Thor number 10. A Gerard Perel, if I'm saying his name properly, cover. Definitely pretty cool. I dig it. And only about 750 copies of this one. So this one's also on the lower end of that print. And we look at the census, 63, not too bad. 25 9/8, 24 9/6s, and a few others. So still, 63 is not too bad considering what we've seen lately. And considering the print run on this one is only in that 750 range estimated. And if you're out there shopping, can you find any? If you're shopping, you can. You can. We have SS 9.4 for $600, 9.8s for about $450, and a 9.6 also asking for about $450. And well, we still have a few more. So there's a whole nother set. Another 9.8 $430, 9.6 $350, and it looks like that raw is asking about $300. So interesting. Prices seem to be pretty consistent as far as the asks go. But with 8 copies, there are copies to be had. If you are out there shopping and you want to look at what actually sold, looks like a best offer was taken on a 9.8 for on a 425 ask, and then a 9.4 sold for only $110. So once again, $110 doesn't seem all that bad for a 9.4 for a tough book to find. I agree. I know there's still 8 copies out there that you could buy, but those are all asking like $500, $400. 110, all right, have my attention. I still don't know if I'm buying in indefinitely at that price, but that's more of the yard I'd be playing in personally. But moving on, we're going to look at New Avengers number 20 as our next book. And we got Luke Cage there. He's Daredevil in the background. Definitely a cool cover. And this is a Giuseppe Camicoli. Camicoli? I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but you get the idea. You can read it there. And we have an estimated print run on this one of a little over 1,000, 1050, 1058 actually. So not too bad. Not too bad for New Avengers. I mean, those were popular selling titles of the time. 41 9/8s. 17 9/6s, 10 9/4s, and a few others, making out a 71 total in the census. So even though there's a couple hundred copies more available potentially of this New Avengers, there's still pretty close to the same amount of graded copies as that Thor. So things like that, I like to put in that kind of perspective. It's definitely interesting to look at. And if you want to look at this book to buy, well, you still can find copies. SS 9.8, Stan, $4,000. I'm just telling you, it's like somebody out there just got Stan to sign all of these, and they're just asking crazy prices. I mean, hey, somebody might buy it, but that being said, $250 raw as well. So $4,000 for that SS 9.8 with multiple signatures, or raw you can get it for $250, or even a 9.8 for only $200, $195. So don't know why you'd buy that raw for $250 if you are actually shopping when you can grab those 9.8 for less. Just saying. And those aren't the only copies, because we got more. We got more 9.6 for about $180, and then a couple of raws from that 1 to 160 range. So there are options out there for you if you're looking for this one. And if you want to see what sold, we did have one sell, which was a best offer on $150 for a CGC SS 9.6, under $150. So price is down on this. Even an offer was accepted on $150 for this thing. So just keep that in mind if you're out there shopping. Which is going to take us to our next book, another Avengers book, this time Secret Avengers, issue number 21. I'm pretty sure this is the Agent Venom book, right? I think this is the Agent Venom book. And you got that Moon Knight. This is definitely a cool cover. I do like this. This is a Koi Pham cover. Definitely dig his art, and I dig this cover. This is a good one to me with the Black Widow, Moon Knight, and and the guys there. 761 is the estimated print run on this one, so it's on the lower end of the group. And I'm going to guess this is probably going to be one of our pricier books. About 50 copies in the census, 49 copies with 29 8s, 15 9/6s, 13 9/4s, and then it looks like a single 9.0. That 9.0 might be where I would be shopping, because I bet you I wouldn't be able to afford the asks on these. And the asking prices are, well, 9.8s looking for 675, 9.6, $300, 9.4s in that 250, 240 range. So definitely not cheap, and they're all slab. So no raw copies out there to be had right now, but we do have 5 options if you're shopping. So not a lot, and it's not a crazy amount, but it definitely is on the pricier side to me. And if you want to look at what actually sold, we did have one sale, a 9.4 that took best offer on $175. So interesting. Interesting. That is something that's I consider it. I'd probably consider it around those prices, because I think I could swing it and justify it, because like I said, I do like this one. This is probably after the Hulk, or maybe right there with the Hulk, one of my favorites of this run. And we're going to move on to Scarlet Spider, #1. So we're getting a new title, new start. This is going to help this one have a heftier print run than probably normal. This Mike Perkins cover for this isn't too bad, but I mean, a Venomized Scarlet Spider isn't too far off just being Venom. So it looks like it's basically red Venom here. So, interesting. And like I said, you get that pumped up #1 print run number. So there's over 1,000 copies of this one, which means that we also probably have a decent amount of the census, which we do, 70, with 36 9/8s and 29 6s, and then further on, right on down the line. And you can probably find this one for sale. And yes, we can. We've got $2,000 on a 9/8. Or $1,500 on a SS 9/8, and then another 9/8. That's another couple 9/8s that are asking $900 and then $670. These are all 9/8s with prices ranging from $685 to $2,000. And is that it? No, we have more. We do have more, but those were all 9/8s. This is the stuff that's not 9/8s, and these are still pretty pricey. And that 9.6 at $600, and then these raws for $400 to $450. Definitely not cheap. So, despite the number of copies being out there and it just being a red-looking Venom, which I'm just kind of looking at, it's pretty hefty price. So I'm not buying in personally at these. And if you want to look at what's sold, doesn't look like many people are either, but they are paying $200 to $230 for those raw copies. So still not too bad when all things considered, with the amount of copies out there on the higher end for this grouping, as well as the the prices. So definitely interesting. The next one is another pretty cool cover. I like this Uncanny X-Force 20. Definitely a pretty cool cover by Paul Renaud. And also a little over 1,000 copies of this one. So these are X-Books, also always sold well. So there's going to be copies. And it's kind of cool. Phantom X, Psylocke, Deadpool, Venomized. Like I said, I kind of dig it. And looks like a lot of people like it too, to get it submitted, because we have over 100 subbed, with only 39 9/8s and 49 9/6s, and then a few others. So only 40% of the total population thereabouts are getting that 9/8. So not that easy to get that super high grade from these submissions, just going off of the evidence. And are there copies to buy? There are. So once again, this even has that special Venom logo for the label. Looks like a SS 9/8 for $4,500. Again, you paying those SS premiums, those are kind of hard. Those are outliers for what I usually look at. So looking at these the other 9/8 there for $1,500, and then the 9.6s that are looking at $700 to almost $1,000. It's definitely interesting. But that raw also is asking $650. So not cheap at all. And that's it. These 5 are what we got to pick from. The cheapest being $650 for a raw, or about $700 for a 9.6. So therein, where do you make that question of like, well, do I buy it raw or just pay $50 to get a 9.6? Do I really think that raw is going to get me that 9.8 to get that extra premium? I don't know. That's the gamble you take sometimes. But when we look at what actually sold for this one, it's coming in at $425, and then a best offer on $425. So yeah, $400 still ain't cheap. It's not quite those $600, $700 asks, but still not cheap at all. Which is going to keep us in the X-Books here with Uncanny X-Men. We just had Uncanny X-Force. We have Uncanny X-Men, and, pretty cool. Magneto, Cyclops, covered by Greg Horn. This is a different look for him. It's kind of cool. Like, you don't typically see Greg Horn doing something so exaggerated with the Venomized faces and whatnot. But here you go. Definitely a different cover for him, and I kind of like it. And this has a heftier print run than most, with over 1,200 copies, because, well, it's Uncanny X-Men. So plenty of copies going around, with 137 in the census. About 49, it looks like 49 9/8s, 52 9/6s, and then a few others down the line, with a lot of 8.5s. There's 12 8.5s. So 8.5 is a popular number for this one as well, as far as grading goes. And if you wanted to grab one, you can find it. 1,200 copies, you're going to find it. And it's, I mean, it's not a bargain, but compared to the Uncanny X-Force, it's a bit cheaper, with the 9/8s here looking at 400 to 500 bucks, and the Raw and the 9/6 in that 200 to 225 range. And we do have a few more. Another Raw for about 100 bucks, and a couple more in that 150 buck range. So the cheapest being 100 bucks if you wanted to buy one. And yeah, that's what's out there. 1 in 50. Not awful. Not awful, I guess. Double ratio. Not a crazy ask. It's not cheap by any stretch, but not crazy, I guess. And if we want to look at what actually sold for these, we do have a few examples, with a SS96 getting the best offer on 300 bucks, or a best offer on $143 for a 9.6, and then a Raw 99 bucks. So that 9.6 on a best offer of 143.77 seems like a decent deal, because again, 9.6 is so close to a 9.8. I mean, on a good day, just a crack a resubmit could get you a 9.8, unless there's, something really noticeable. So I mean, take a look at the pictures. Hopefully there's good images if you're buying 9.6s, but I'm telling you, there really isn't a whole heck of a lot of difference with a 9.6 and a 9.8. Just saying. And we're going to move on, get near the end of the alphabet, because we did this alphabetically. If you didn't notice, we are at Venom. So a Venomized Venom on issue 12. But it's not just Venom. This is like a demonized Venom there, almost like Ghost Rider-esque, with a Son of Satan spear there. This is also a Mike Del Mundo, which is pretty cool. So kind of like it, kind of fun. So when we look at the incentive numbers there, you can see it's not that bad as far as the other books have gone so far. And when we take a look into the census, you can see there's only 45 of those copies in the CGC census total, with only 15 9.8s, 18 9.6s, and 12 9.4s. And that's it for this entire print run. So that's probably going to give us some pricey books, if we can find any out there on the market. And I found a few, including $7,000 for a 9.8. 9.8 for $7,000. That's a steep ask, but that 9.6 still wants 1,500 bucks. So this is a pricey book. And then we got a couple of Raws asking for 13 at 1,500, and then a 9.4 also asking $1,300. So that's all we got out on the market if you were shopping for this one. So if you're trying to make this set, this is going to be another one of those backbreakers, because this is a pricey book. And if you want to see if those prices, hold water to what's sold recently, well, you're going to have to guess, because there were no sales the last 3 months. So you have to go a little bit further back into the histories of GPA and whatnot to get the prices, but we're not going to do that here. I think it's enough to say that in the last 3 months, no copies have sold. And that's going to take us to our next book. And this is another cover I kind of dig. I like this one. This another Wolverine, the X-Men. So I like the Venomized Wolverine and, the X-Crew there. Definitely dig it. And this is a Mark Brooks, which is pretty nice. I like it. This is on the higher end of the ones I like, with the Del Mundos and that Koi Fom in there. And those are the ones I've liked the best out of this grouping. This is probably right up there with them. And with close to 1,200 copies, it's a plentiful book, but it's an X book. So that's not too surprising. When we look at the census, there's 100 copies, 102 to be precise, in the census, with 40 of them being 9.8s, 39 9.6s, and then a few others down the line. And if you're shopping, you can find a couple. 9.8 is going to run you about $650. 9.6 can be anywhere from $330 to $450, and then there's a 9.4 down there for $280. And yes, we even have some more. Look, there's a 9.6 that's only asking $265, so that's a bargain. And then we got a handful of Raws, just in $167 to about $200. So looks like $175, $200 is what you're going to be paying for a Raw one of these if you are out there shopping right now. And if you want to see what's sold, well, we've got none in the last couple of months, which means people just don't want to pay that price, even though it's not terrible. I mean, it's high. I mean, it's 1 in 50, but 170, $200 for a Raw, a little steep. But I'm telling you, I don't see this book at the shops, but there are copies out there. There are copies to be had if you go shopping. and the print run again supports that. Which is going to take us to our next book. We're still in that X book realm here with X-Men, number 23. And you can see we got a Warpath, a Storm, Jubilee, pretty cool Domino even on this John Tyler Christopher cover. Yes, folks, he does more than action figures and negative space variants. So this John Tyler Christopher, it ain't bad. It ain't bad. And it's got on the lower end, even though this is straight X-Men, only 774 copies. And when we turn over to the census, we can see that we only got 53 copies in the census with 23 9/8s, 17 9/6s, and then a few others kind of rounding out that number. So definitely not a ton of copies out there. And if you're shopping, well, same can be said there. We only got 3. $2,300 for a 9/8, 9/6 wants $600, and another 9/6 wants $500. So this one ain't cheap. This John Tyler Christopher ain't cheap, and there aren't a lot. There are only 3 here. Which again, when we looked at a bunch of these, we have like a dozen, two pages worth. 3 is definitely on the lower end for what we've seen today, and we've got none sold the last 3 months either. So got to keep that in mind as well. So this one could be on the border. This one could be on the border. But we got one more book, X-Men Legacy, number 261, getting right near the end of this run for X-Men Legacy. This covered by, this is going to be another tough one for me, Mirco Pierfederici. I don't know how close I was, but that's my best shot. And incentive right around the same as that other X-Men book with 751. So again, on the lower end, even though these are X titles, these are on the lower printed side of the X universe at that time. And still pretty cool gambit and whatnot there on the cover. And this has 41 copies in that census with a little more than half, 24 copies in 9/8, 12 9/6s, and then a few others rounding that out. But if you want to buy this book and you were out there shopping for it, well, you're only getting one shot. And it's about $600 for a 9/8. 22 watchers, too. So this one is not as plentiful as the rest. I guess people like the Venomized Gambit and Rogue possibly here, front and center. I don't know, but if we want to look at what actually sold, we also do have one sale on 9/0 for $156.91. Interesting. But that's it. That's our full list. I know that was a lot of books. I think it was like 23 thereabouts. So close to 2 dozen. So plenty of books to choose from. I'm trying to be stricter here. So despite that X-Men having 3 copies available, I'm leaning more against that. While the sales can factor in potentially, I'm really leaning on how many copies are out there for you to buy. So with that being said, I'm only looking at these 2. This Journey into Mystery and this last one, this X-Men Legacy 261, since they both only have 1 copy out there. If you want to buy it, one option, those are going to be my 2 ghosts, I think, out of this huge list. I'm just going to put these in the ghost category, and then we're going to leave the rest to be hard to find. There's nothing wrong with being hard to find, most of which are hard to find and expensive, but these are being hard to find. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Again, argue with me. Tell me if you think I'm wrong in the comments. I have no problem with that. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking this out and spending the time. I know this is on the longer side of things, but that's why it's a supersized special Sunday edition. We had a lot of books to talk about. Instead of talking about 4 or 5, we talked about close to 2 dozen. So hopefully you like that. Hopefully you like this series as well as all the other stuff I'm putting out on the channel. If you are, please like, subscribe, hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. I do have some more ghosts to talk about this Tuesday, so we will be back with our regularly scheduled programming this week. Might mix up some of the other days and some of the other options a little bit, but Tuesdays are definitely my days to talk about ghosts. So make sure you check it out every Tuesday with the occasional special thrown in here and there. So again, let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for stopping in, and I appreciate you all, and I will see you all soon.